I asked Erica what my music was, and she said, I don't remember, but I didn't troll anyone. No, wait, I did. So thanks for that. Also, loved that talk, the MailChimp. Alison did a great job there. I actually very nearly wore my MailChimp shirt on stage today. I love that shirt. The power of that kind of marketing is really incredible. Living in the future of user behavior. So a really successful TV ad executive said, being in TV advertising in the 60s, it was just impossible not to make bucket loads of money. You've got this new channel that is dominant, it's so successful, it's such a great way of promoting products and companies. And the money was just flooding in. You couldn't help but make money. And I feel like the internet is just becoming even more so that for us right now. That the reason TV worked so well was that the dominance of having that audience captivated in one place where you could go and get them. And the way the internet is going, I feel like we have greater tools at our disposal for building our own audiences than ever before. And it's the power that that gives us that is bringing the money into the industry, that is making this stuff so. And I'm so excited about working in an industry that is that powerful, where the marketing is, where we can do that kind of cool stuff. And I'm also really excited about the future. I totally geek out on this stuff. And what I'm talking about here today is not far off future. I'm not talking about self-driving cars and all that kind of stuff. This is mainly, pretty much entirely, here already. Many of us are using these things already, but they're not necessarily mainstream. And I'm just trying to pick out the trends that I think are going to be important to us as marketers as they become more widespread. So there's two big themes in my talk today. I also have a lot of slides, so I'm going to have to go pretty quick. I'm going to be talking about humans, and I'm going to be talking about robots. And we've always marketed to humans and robots, but I've got some slightly different angles on some of this stuff. So firstly, the humans part. Us, the squishy bit. We control our interaction with the internet more than we used to, in many ways, which is something that I think Optimus Prime would appreciate. And we see this trend offline as well. So we don't watch commercials if we can skip them. We like to control that environment. We do the same thing online. So we time shift our internet content. If you're not using Instapaper, Pocket, those kinds of things, I think more and more people are going to use that kind of stuff. And that means we're not necessarily consuming it where and when the publisher or the brand would like us to. We're in more control. And it's not just about the time. The stuff looks like this, covered in adverts is the way they want us to see it. I actually really like the design of The Verge, but it's amazing how much of the page is taken over by advertising. But I read it like this, which isn't how they necessarily want me to read it. But it's a bit of a trade-off, because they'd rather I read it than I didn't read it, especially because the platform I'm reading it on here makes it really easy to share it. This is Instapaper. Makes it really easy to share it across my social network. So it's an interesting trade-off for them. And we're following people more than ever before. So rather than subscribing to a brand or a product, we're getting stuff curated for us by people that we trust. And I mean, actually, Seth isn't on Twitter, but it's that same kind of, we want people we trust to tell us what to read. And we're refusing to do what brands tell us to do. Though, did you guys see the study that came out the other day about why people like brands on Facebook? The number one reason, I love this. I was just chatting to Ian Lurie about it, who we were like, yes, this gives us a nice warm feeling as marketers. The main reason people like brands on Facebook is not to receive their posts in the stream. It's because they actually like that brand. Right? People like Nike on Facebook because they like Nike. And that's nice. That makes me feel warm. But ignoring that, we mainly don't do what brands want us to do. So we don't check out their adverts, we time shift, we skip, we do all these things. Apologies for the profanity, but this is a direct quote from a presentation, a great presentation from Wyden and Kennedy, about how I think it's essentially about the futility of all of those competitions where it's like some brand that you have no interest in really doing anything with. Like, we all buy toilet cleaner, but none of us really wants to do anything involving a social media competition or what. Anyway, you should check out that presentation. There's a load of good stuff in there. And I talked about channels and subscribing and following people, and RSS was a great answer. It never really made the mainstream, I suspect, or at least if it did, people didn't really know what they were doing, or they didn't know it was RSS. But even before Google killed Google Reader, I mean, my experience certainly, who here used RSS heavily, used Google Reader and things like that, and then stopped or found their usage declining because they were getting their news in other places? Is that an experience? Yeah, a bunch of people, right? And we're unusual. We started using RSS in the first place. Most people never even got that far, but it solves an actual need. And nothing has really come along to replace it. I hope that probably one of these social-driven things is going to be valuable, but I haven't found one that works for me yet. And I exported all my feeds from Google Takeout before they killed Google Reader. But I haven't re-imported them in anywhere else yet, because firstly, I'm waiting for Pete's blog post to finish. And secondly, I don't feel like I'd use any of them, but I don't want to lose that. It's a challenging problem. But at the moment, my process is totally broken. I read articles when they get shared so much and so often that I feel like I just can't ignore them anymore. And that's a ridiculous way of consuming news. But what it means for the publisher or the brand is that our audience is fragmented because they're not subscribed to our RSS feed, or they're not following us so much. They're following these curators. So when something gets shared like crazy across my newsfeed and I finally bother to click on it and go and read it, there's no telling which site it's going to be on. There's no telling which company it's going to be from or which brand invested in the content. And so I am a new visitor to way more sites than I used to be. I would have been a returning visitor far more often. But that's where I started. Remember the TV thing? The power of TV was the audience. It was the fact that the audience was there at prime time, every day, at the same time, all of them watching the same damn thing. And we don't do that online. But that's also a huge power for anybody who can own that audience. And I think that doing anything, I just find myself using the word audience more and more in everything, in our own content, in our internal presentations, in our strategy. Like, what we need to be doing is building audiences for people, because that's what they've lost. They lost the power to go and find audiences, and they should be owning them. They should be their own audiences. But we also find that we kind of piss people off more than we used to, I think. The internet feels like a potentially grumpier place sometimes, and the backlash can be savage, because there's way more people there. And people have never had boundaries on the internet anyway. And so there's a lot of risks in doing this stuff. And there've been some questions about that, about keeping things suitable for all the audiences, all that kind of stuff, and the psychology of the web earlier about, well, different groups of people need different things. But fundamentally, this is the shift that I think we're starting to see. Is we need to be marketing to people who are in control of what they consume, because they've got plenty of other options to go and consume it elsewhere. And we have to be assuming that the ones we're going for are the ones that we need to be wanted by them. And we need to be aiming not to kind of appear out of the blue, but that they came seeking us out repeatedly and become part of that audience. And learn the lessons from the DVR, because it amazes me that you guys in the US, I don't know if it exists in the UK, but it affects us just the same, because a lot of our tech comes from here, is the legislation you guys have that prevents people from making DVRs that automatically skip adverts. That is an exceptional piece of lobbying. Spoiler alert, we are not going to achieve that. The internet is not going to achieve a piece of lobbying that prevents people from building web browser plugins that skip adverts. Which I think is a good thing. That kind of democratization of technology. Our technology works for us. But fundamentally, our adverts it all needs to be there. It needs to be liked. It needs to be wanted. So our devices work for us. Did you guys see this study from Google published this data? 77% of mobile searches, as in searches done on a mobile device, are done in a location where a computer was available. They're done at home or at work. 77%. Why? Because they're convenient. They're in your hand. They're always on. There are a whole bunch of reasons. But the point is that that means that we can't say somebody on a mobile device is a mobile visitor. And a lot of the metaphors that we use break down. It's more about being connected and being on everywhere. Though equally, you can mock this in the other direction. I don't know if you guys saw this advert. This is an advert done for a bar that has made beer glasses that have a bit cut out at the bottom, so they only stand up if you use your cell phone as a rest, which basically means that everybody has to put their phone down. It's really cleverly done. I don't even know if it's real. I mean, it might just be an advert, but it was done by this ad agency, and I think it's really clever. I hope it's real, partly because it just feels so impractical. Do you get different kinds of glasses depending on what kind of phone you have? And how often do you just spill? I don't know. It doesn't seem like the greatest idea, but it amuses me anyway. But the point being that both devices and channels are blurry. It's not clear whether I'm in Starbucks on my laptop on my mobile or not. I'm on the train on my laptop on my mobile or not. I'm on my phone on my couch on my mobile or not. And does it matter? A lot of the devices are converging. So not only in size, I'll talk about that in a minute, but in all kinds of functionality. So our computers turn on instantly, just like our phones do. Or in fact, I mean, anybody who has Windows 8, it's actually really hard to work out how to turn it off. I love that they hid that option. I don't know what I mean, not that I want to turn it off very often, but it's just, anyway. Our computers turn on instantly. They're lightweight. They're touch screen in some cases, or they're becoming touch screen. Across our mobile devices and our computers, we need less knowledge about what's going on behind the scenes. We don't have to download something and then install it. It just happens via these app stores. Incidentally, the Chrome store, I mean, Chrome is basically a full OS. And Google has snuck their own operating system onto this 750 million devices. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. File systems are becoming less important. You know, if you download something on your phone or your iPad or whatever, you don't choose where to save it. It's a little bit like my mum working on Windows XP, where it's just like, I'll just save it in whichever folder it happens to open in. But that's how I use Google Docs. Who organizes Google Docs into folders? There's got to be some people with, yeah, there we go, some OCD in the back there. But I don't. I just go, new one, I'll find it later. It'll be fine. It's probably not very important anyway. And the devices are all converging. So Pete Wales talked about this at our presentation. I don't know where Pete is, around somewhere. At our presentation at our meetup in London, that you can't think about, you know those responsive, we in fact have one on our website, guide to how to do responsive stuff, and it shows a laptop screen, and then it shows a tablet screen, and then it shows a phone screen, and you're like, oh, I need to work on 3 things. But it's not like that. It's just a continuum, especially when you consider all the way that the orientation, so you can have your device in portrait or landscape. It could be retina or not retina. It could be a phablet, whatever, you know, between a phone and a tablet. It could be the little tablet, the big tablet. It could be a laptop. It could be a desktop. It could be 3 monitors. And essentially, it's just a continuum. You have to just work well on every device. And I think when we're making up words like phablet, I didn't make that up, incidentally, but when we it's great, the English language is wonderful. When we're making up words like phablet, we have to realize that it's got ridiculous. And really, this thing is just, like phones and tablets are just the same damn thing in different sizes. And from a software perspective as well, so we, oops. Everybody seems to have that problem at some point in the presentation. We choose to be signed in on every device, partly because it's getting easier to sign in everywhere. If you have an Android phone, you go to any kind of Google property, and it just pops up this little thing. Because you're signed into Android, it'll sign you into the website, which is really cool. It's getting harder not to be signed in everywhere. You know, you end up signing on YouTube, even though you never knowingly had a YouTube account, or all of this stuff. And Chrome Sync is wonderful. I love Chrome Sync. If you can read what's going on there, you can see that I do very different things on my PC versus my tablet. I'm doing, on my PC, I've got my inbox and my calendar. on my tablet. I've got a piece of serious research and a Reddit thread about what would happen if someone committed murder in space. The answer apparently is that they would get locked up, but nobody's quite clear who by, and it's not very clear who has jurisdiction. But I think I'm off topic. Incidentally, I reckon that Chrome Sync soon is going to start syncing at least Google cookies. So you will be just straight out signed in everywhere. You won't have to sign in on different devices. They'll be able to do retargeting cross-platform, analytics cross-platform, all that kind of stuff. Maybe some other partners will get that. I don't know. There's no inside information there. I'm just guessing. But it's only one of this, Dropbox, all this other stuff. It's all making the actual physical device basically irrelevant, right? I can throw my phone away, and all I have to do now is replace the actual physical device, right? If I get another device, I sign into my Google account, sync everything back up, it's all just working again. It doesn't matter. I'm not emotionally connected to the actual device anymore. Did I break it? Awesome. That's good, because actually I probably would be a little bit screwed for a little while. Anyway, and my favorite announcement in the Google I/O presentation, or day conference, was unified alerts. It's a tiny little thing. But if you've got a phone, a tablet, and a laptop, and you get a Google Plus message, and it used to be really annoying that you'd get the same one in every place, and some things are still like this. And Trello, for example, consistently bugs me on every device I have anytime anybody messages me on it. But I love this, and we're going to see more and more of this kind of thing, where our devices will work for us more because the technology is designed for humans. So the action: stop thinking of mobile as different. People are using this technology to help themselves, and you need to play nice with that tech. So you need to let people time shift your stuff. So one particular action is any publishers, I think, should be making sure that their stuff works well on things like Instapaper and Pocket and all these other apps. But all try and strip the Chrome. And it's hard to make the business case for this, really. But I think those people who are reading you there are passionate fans. They're very likely to share your work. And they're not going to read your stuff if you make it inaccessible there. They're just going to carry on. By that point, it's too late. They're probably offline when they're reading it anyway. They're not going to go back and find your stuff later. You need to play well with all these different screen sizes, different connection speeds. I love, there was an anecdote, some guy from YouTube, I saw a presentation that, so a YouTube page used to be about a megabyte download, ignoring the video. Just all the CSS and JavaScript and all that kind of stuff. And they had a project, I want to call it Silverlight, but that can't be right. Featherlight, I think it was called. They had a project to basically make a really cut-down, lightweight version of the page. And they did that, and they saw their average page load times increase, which is kind of weird. But what had happened is they had opened up YouTube to a swathe of the world that didn't have a fast enough internet connection to use YouTube previously. And all these people on really slow connections were now using YouTube in huge numbers, so much so that they were distorting the average load time of the pages. So that's also a lesson about sampling and averaging averages, but never mind. So another little tactical thing for the Instapapers and the buffers and all these kind of things, try adding your Twitter handle, publishers again, try adding Twitter handles to titles, because if you look at a tweet like this, anybody see anything wrong here? Well, obviously, the subhead you may not be able to read. The Spurs have figured out the one way to defend LeBron James, ignoring some obvious details. One of the problems is you can't tell who wrote that article. I haven't included any via or by, or there's no Twitter handle to take from there. It would look much better if it was like this. Weird. I don't know why Business Insider was writing about this, but there you go. It was a Business Insider article. But I didn't write that tweet. It was just pulled from the title. Buffer, Instapaper, all these things pulled from the title. And you need to think of your titles in that context and figure out that they are going to become tweets in a lot of cases. So with less than half the time remaining, on to the second half of the talk, which is about robots. So I talked about the humans. This bit's about robots, because there are a bunch of ways that, although I've been talking about how I'm in more control of the way I consume media than ever before, there's also a whole bunch of ways in which I'm really not. That there's a whole load of things that I don't really know how they work. which kind of upsets me. One of the lessons that I most vividly remember from high school was a shop class. We call it design and technology. And my teacher encouraged us to spend our lives asking ourselves, how does that work? You know, so those office chairs where you pull the little thing and it goes up and down. How does that work? I have no idea incidentally. I need to Google that. And I love these. This is a series of adverts from a German jobs site that just kind of plays on the fact that people have no idea how these, essentially they're saying, look, these are sucky jobs. But they're also saying, nobody has any idea how these things actually work. Somebody should do that in the US, I think. Take the, great artists steal, all that kind of stuff. Take these kind of adverts that have worked really well overseas and use them here. So anyway, the robots are coming. They're running our lives. Stuff like, this query should not work. That movie where those two guys drink wine. But it does. Spooky. The robots are starting to understand and not just index. There's a load of stuff that Matt Brown was talking about. And there's a load more on Reddit, incidentally. And it highlights that this is not just clever keyword stuff, because essentially nobody else can do this. Only Google can manage this. When somebody does a search for best, searches that include the word best are growing. What do you think people are looking for? Pages that say best in the title tag? Probably not. I'm going to say. This kind of semantic understanding, that the robots need to not just index the web, but understand it. And you should check out this presentation. I don't know, Justin Briggs is around somewhere. He wrote this article that you should read that incorporates a link to this presentation, which you should watch, because it's incredible. It's all about how Google is pulling out this structured data from the unstructured web. And context is being added to the queries we do. So we're used to seeing queries like, or talking about queries like this. Forever. SEOs have talked about key phrases that are these sequence of words, London tube stations. But I'm going to argue that we should be thinking of the query in two parts. There's the explicit query, which are the words that we type in to Google, and the implicit query, which is all of the other stuff that they know about us. In this case, iPhone user on the street in London. And that we should be thinking about the query as being the combination of these two things. That the implicit query plus the explicit query is, in fact, the query that we're talking about. And what's happening over time is that back in the day, anybody doing the same keyword search was getting the same result, right? So there was no implicit data being added. It was only explicit data. And gradually, we've seen some implicit data being added on top of this. And gradually, they're adding more and more of these signals, not just where you are, but what device you are, what your history looks like, what other stuff you've searched for, your preferences, all kinds of stuff factors in. And to the extent that I think it becomes kind of meaningless to talk about the algorithm anymore. But the interesting thing is not this. It's the next step. When the blue bars start going down, in other words, we start trusting the system to know so much about us that our queries change. So I've definitely given presentations where I have mocked people I've mocked CEOs who are like, I want to rank for restaurant. I've given presentations mocking that whole idea, and then I found myself doing a search for the other day for breakfast. Seriously, I did this. I was in Boston. The example I'm going to show you isn't in Boston, because that wasn't where I was when I took the screenshots. But the time I did this, I was in Boston for one of our conferences, and I genuinely wanted just a place to go for breakfast. But the search query I did was not breakfast places in Boston. It was just breakfast. But it worked. So this is where I was in London when I did this search. I got some local results. The Breakfast Club is a great place to go for breakfast. I don't know the others. Even the regular search results, things like this ranking that probably shouldn't, except for the fact that the Hawksmoor is an exceptional breakfast and very close to where I was, which is all about the implicit query, not the explicit query. And this is the only non-conspiracy theory version I have of what's going on with not provided. There's all the conspiracy theories, and I'm inclined to, I have some sympathies. But the only rational thing that actually ties it all together is to say Google is fundamentally trying to make everything less about keywords. Not just they don't want you to have the keyword data, but that's not how they're thinking, because they're building up these queries that are, there's a quote from Sergey, I think, saying in the future, you won't even need to perform a query. We'll just hand stuff to you. You're talking about Google now, but this was 10 years ago. And machines are filtering what we see as well as ranking them. So we're used to spam filters. We've had spam filters on our email for decades. But there are other filters all over the place that we might not have realized how many there are out there. So priority inbox, Facebook EdgeRank, all this stuff. There are things that I have explicitly signed up for. I have given my permission, I've joined somebody's audience, and I'm not seeing those things because the robots have decided I don't need to. The robots have realized that I wasn't paying attention to them, and they might as well not show them to me anyway. Incidentally, priority inbox is incredible, and you should use it. And all of this stuff, whoa. All of this stuff, in many ways, is a form of personalization, because what it means is that the stuff I see is different to the stuff you see, and you need to be marketing to these humans who are in control, but who have a layer of robots doing stuff that just kind of working for them, and they're not quite sure what's going on, and they don't quite know how that works, and some magic happens, and so forth. But you can make these robots angry in all kinds of ways. And previously, we would have talked about de-indexation, and we have recently talked about a lot of the updates that have been happening that are essentially ways that you might make robots angry. But I think the future of this is less about penalty and more just about invisibility. That it's not that you will rank less well in some unpersonalized, general sense. It's that your audience won't find you because the robots have decided you should be invisible. And so we also need to be marketing not only to the humans who are in control, but to the robots who are in control. And that means training their filters, having people declare things not spam. We can occasionally game them. This is a cunning tactic from the Huffington Post. Like if you agree, comment if you disagree. This kind of stuff only obviously works short term. I'm sure the algorithms are catching up. But essentially, EdgeRank takes into account likes and comments. So if you incentivize both on a divisive issue, then it works really well. And we need to be machine readable. The stuff, again, Matt was talking about yesterday, not only on our own site and making our own information available, but our trust factors as well. So I don't think author rank is a thing yet. But I think it's going to be, right? The social graph is incredibly powerful, and they have access to such a wealth of information about who is influential. And it is fundamentally people who link to other people, or people who link to stuff other people have written. They're curators. We follow people. All of these trends are there to make links continue to be a powerful factor. I always feel like when you see stuff that Matt Cutts has said, you have to treat it with a huge grain of salt. But he talked about how links are going to be around for some time to come. And I think what he means is concepts that look like links, or there are ways to enhance the data that looks like link data. Endorsements are going to be around for some time to come. Citations, trusted links, author, all of this stuff makes meaning out of the mess of the web. And increasingly, the robots are just going around learning what we like, whether we like it or not. And that's the presentation about, I mentioned that Justin links to, has a bit about how they're doing semantic understanding to know when people are saying good things versus when people are saying bad things, and how they've actually, some of this stuff is working really well. And that we are going to see machines making those kind of decisions for us as well. And so we need to be, I would suggest doing both things. Trying to understand, this is what SEO has always been about. Fundamentally, is about trying to do the things that make our websites really good and making sure that they represent themselves in a great way. It's just that the way we do that is changing. It's becoming less about, in most cases, about the simple, can I get indexed, can I get crawled, those kind of things. And it's becoming more about, can I be understood by the robots? And Google is making this huge progress, mainly by spreading fear at this point. That a lot of this is almost exactly the same search result that Rand showed the other day. We've been seeing payday loan stuff bouncing around all over the place, and it's a different set of people ranking every day, and they're all using crazy tactics. But that's only ever working short term. And the brands aren't playing in that space because they're scared, and they're probably right to be scared. And I think that's probably a good thing. But it fundamentally, the big trend that I think we need to do to make ourselves as successful as those TV guys were, because TV ads dominated. TV ads were the way to build dominant businesses through most of the 20th century. The way that our industry can be the way to build dominant businesses over the next 100 years is that we need to realize that we're not gaming and tweaking those little factors. Yes, we need to do the technical details right, but that we need to be helping our clients or our brands or our bosses earn attention and build real audiences that stick around, because the thing we lost was the ability to just go to that place where the audience was sitting waiting for us. And unlike the Charlie Brooker quote, we shouldn't be asking them to tip the pile of shit over their heads, but we should be actually getting them into our own audience. And this is, I think, it's not about earning the short-term stuff, it's about making sure that they really want what you have. And it ties in so nicely with what Alison was talking about from a UX perspective, which I think is just one great way of implementing some of those things. So I'm excited about the future. I love living in the future. I'm hoping my phone is still working, and I'm going to go and get it off somebody who picked it up. But thank you.
Can we ask you a few questions?
Of course.
Yeah. So that implicit search query stuff it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And you working with some of your bigger clients and some of your consultants working with clients, how do you start that conversation that we need to start focusing on a bigger picture?
So tactically around the keyword thing, I mean, I don't think people realize this from their own user behavior. So they know fundamentally that their usage is changing and that you can see those things, but we're still losing those tactical arguments with marketing departments, with heads of marketing, all this kind of stuff. We still lose those. So there are still people who care about the vanity ranking or all kinds of things, but we were actually having a conversation at lunch about the carousel issue, the fact that you lose the generic search that somebody did because the first thing Google does is send you to a branded search. And right now, we don't have a great answer for that, but I think the answer will become moving away from any of those things that look like they're debugging metrics, right? That's how you find out what went wrong. Mm-hmm. That's why you need to track rankings, fundamentally. Again, I have this disagreement with Google's stance on, they say, we don't want you to track rankings, and they don't want us to track rankings mainly because they don't want us reverse engineering, and they don't want us scraping. But they try to claim that we don't need them, but I think we do, to debug stuff. Yeah. We need it when something goes wrong. You need to know that a ranking dropped, but that's not the KPI. And that's the answer. Is we need broader, more holistic marketing KPIs, the stuff Joanna was talking about earlier, for example, that get us to that point, and hopefully we'll start winning those arguments.
Let's do 2 questions. Yes.
Hey, Will. Thanks for the shout out first.
Hi, Pete.
I do. So, do you think, taking a much broader view with this, kind of 25 years from now, do you think we're still going to see search primarily being triggered by the user, or do you think it's going to increasingly become that Google just knows it's breakfast time and I'm not at home, therefore feed me where I should go and have breakfast? And if so, what do you think you start doing now with your clients so that 5, 10, 20, however many years it is, that you're well positioned for that?
So firstly, I forgot to have breakfast this morning. So,
so
there's a service
right
in
now.
There somewhere. I don't think it cannibalizes that much. So I think it's a little bit like Rand was talking about with the mobile apps, that those things are just things I didn't used to have, right? The push notification. Yeah. Hey, Will, go and have breakfast. Here.
Because I mean, that's what we're seeing with Google now, right? It's push search.
Absolutely. And those are mainly searches, in many cases, those are searches I wouldn't have performed anyway. They're in addition. And I think that Google is never, I'm going to say never, going to be able to go, oh, I have seen Clippy. You appear to be trying to write a Python program. You seem to be struggling with this. I've Googled it. Maybe, who knows? What do we do to position ourselves? I'm pretty sure the answer is going to look in some form like building brand, because brands will dominate whatever those things look like. And all of the stuff that we've just been hearing about from the psychology perspective, from the UX perspective, about just getting people to love you, that's overarching. I mean, even way back to BMW getting de-indexed back in the day, is if you are, in some sense, big enough or loved enough or just so much the right answer, that it's embarrassing that you're not there to be found, then that's the position that dominates. And it's like the saying, you owe the bank £1,000, they own you. You owe the bank £1 billion, and you own the bank. It's that concept. You need to get in your space to be so much the right answer. And I think MailChimp has this in the email space, actually. You do any search for any kind of, how should I improve my open rates or whatever, they're always there. And if they stop being there, that would be weird, at least to me.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yes, final question.
Thanks, Will. My name's Adrian Vender, and fascinating talk about how we, people and robots, are evolving and how that's changing the search and content experience. So one thing I want to throw out there, some people might think this is ridiculous, but I do think we have to think about it in terms of the future, whether it's relevant or not. Google Glass. Mm-hmm. In your views of what you think is going on, how much does Google Glass potentially affect our future experience, or how does it not affect our future experience with content and search?
I think it's going to be huge, but I don't think we're going to walk around with glasses that project something here. But if they made a contact lens, I would be all over that. And I imagine they are. Somebody is. I read a great article saying that there's a very good chance Google will not successfully commercialize glass. But somebody is going to. They've essentially proven that it's possible, and with all of the other stuff that's going on, that I think that kind of, it's just an extension of push notifications and always connected, all of those things. I'm pretty good with faces, but I'm terrible with names. I would love a little floating, people's name right next to, like across their forehead, done by a head-up display. That would be incredible. And that's the kind of future I suspect we will live in. But I don't think it fundamentally will change how there will still be times, much like I was saying to Pete, there will still be times when we have to go and explicitly search for things, because there's no way of knowing, I don't think, at that micro scale, what you need right now when you're reading, researching, discovering, all of that stuff. But what do we do about it? I mean, I have no idea. But I don't think it's, I think that's just another example where, much like the mobile stuff I was talking about and the tablet, all these things are basically the same thing. It's just the same thing. We may have a different interface to it, but it will perform the same functions, we'll do the same things on that device, and the marketing tactics won't change dramatically. The big overall strategy will shift, but for every device. And so what you do for Google Glass will just be the same as you do for phones at that point, I think.
All right, thank you. Will, thank you for coming to Seattle again. Appreciate it, man.